So you all live in Kentucky, so you probably know a lot of ditto heads, right? And the reason this book is really good, and I urge you guys to take a look into it, is because right now we all know George Bush is at 31%, but the danger we run into right now is that people think that was George Bush, he was incompetent, right? Republicans, though, it's just because George Bush screwed them up. And we got to make sure that people realize that the problem is not George Bush, that the problem is conservative ideology itself. So let's start turning some of these people around. So I'm really stoked about this honorary citizenship thing because I get all the rights and privileges together with the responsibility. So I can't wait to vote against Ann Northup. Republicans right now have so little going for them right now that literally they're tracking sales of Crashing the Gates. Every week, Matt Drudge posts on the book how horrible the book is doing, right? And so this is all they have going for them. So buy a liberal book, make a conservative cry. A year ago, when we started writing this book, a lot of what we were saying was really, really controversial. I mean, this notion that the Democratic Party should exist in 50 states, which is wacky craziness from these crazy liberal bloggers who didn't know what they did, what they were talking about, and they're crazy young extremist readers. And I see that you're all young, but I don't know if I see a lot of extremists out here. So my worldview is kind of shaking a little bit right now. But it was interesting noting that this notion that we need to be a national party because we're the Democratic National Committee, that we should be a national party was really controversial. The notion that we should that consultants and the people in D.C. didn't know what they were doing and they were running the party into the ground. Crazy, crazy notion. And the thoughts and the notion that the issue groups in the party, this fragmented progressive movement was actually a detriment, not just to the party itself, but also to those groups themselves and the issues that they care about was really, really controversial. And it's amazing how quickly, in just a year, things are turning around, where a lot of what we were talking about in the book has become conventional wisdom. And I'm always looking for a fight, so I was a little disappointed in that. It's like people start agreeing with me, and I don't know what to do when that happens. But it's amazing, and things are changing. And a lot of what we write about in the book isn't just the pie in the sky wishes of two bloggers who sat down and decided this is what's best for the party. I mean, this is, ironically from two bloggers, this is a work of journalism. We went out into the states and we looked at places where the party was doing really well, and we looked at places where the party was in absolute shambles, and we took lessons from that. So when people in DC started reading this book, and I know they were ready to trash it, right? They were ready to marginalize it. They realized that they could not do that because the lessons we've derived are real-world lessons from Democrats in states like Montana and Colorado and Minneapolis and elsewhere that have been successful. This party can succeed nationally. There's nothing in our values that is un-American, that is not in the mainstream. There's nothing out of the mainstream about wanting fairness and opportunity and investing in our people and investing in our country. There's nothing in that is un-American, that does not play with the American people. And we're seeing a new generation of Democrats arise in places like Montana and Virginia, where we're realizing that we need to stop talking about issues. We need to stop trying to appeal to people up here, because the Republicans have gotten really good at talking to their people and talking to the American people right here. And there's nothing wrong with that, because really, at the end of the day, people don't really want to know how you're going to vote on issues X, Y, and Z. They want to know, when an issue comes across your desk, what values drive your decision. That's it. So we're so fixated on, we'll spend $200 million for education and $400 million on transportation and $1 billion for healthcare and so on. We want to put pie charts up, and we want to appeal to people here. We want them to logically arrive at the conclusion that it's better to be a Democrat. But really, at the end of the day, if we talk about those issues, like Governor Schweitzer of Montana says, issues divide, values unite. So the question doesn't become then, oh, should we have two men holding hands walking down the street? But the issue becomes, if you believe in fairness, and if you believe in an America where everybody gets a fair shake and we don't discriminate, then logically, this is how I'm going to decide on the issue. And you may disagree on that conclusion, but the issue, the values that drive me are fairness, and people cannot disagree with that. And if George Bush taught us anything in 2004, it's that people will vote for you if they think that they may disagree individually on the issues, but they'll vote for you if they think that your values are right, if you have the right intentions. And I believe very firmly that Bush is at 31%, not because suddenly people started disagreeing with the issues. They've always disagreed with them. In 2004, before the election, his approval ratings were in the 40 percentile. If you ask people if America was headed in the right direction, 70% or more said it was not. So why did they vote for him? Because they thought, well, I disagree with him on all these issues, but he's trying to keep us safe. His intentions are good. He wants to keep America safe. So yeah, I don't agree that we should be spying on American citizens, but he wants to keep America safe. I don't agree with Iraq. It's a disaster. People are dying for no reason, but he wanted to keep Americans safe. And so on. You can go down the list, and the rationalization was always, but he wants to keep America safe. And you know what destroyed that? Does anybody know? No. Katrina was part. But the we want to keep America safe part, Dubai. As soon as people realized, wait a second, if he wanted to keep America safe, carry the 6, suddenly it did not add up anymore. And that's the issue. We need to talk to people about what democratic values are, what we believe in here, what drives our decision-making process, because they're willing to overlook the final issues, the conclusions they make. They're going to overlook that if they believe that our heart's in the right place. I was, in the book, we talk about Colorado, where 16 House seats were targeted by Democrats in a very heavily Republican state at the time. We won 15 of those 16 seats. I think 12 of those were actually districts that were carried by George Bush over Kerry. And I was talking to a young woman who won one of those seats when I was in Colorado, and she won in a district that Bush carried by 60%. So 3-2 almost Bush district, she won it. And she tells the story about how she was going door to door, and she went up to a door and she knocked it, and the guy answered, and he said, well, how do you vote on abortion? Because that's my issue. And she said, well, on that issue, we're just going to have to disagree, and if that's what you're going to vote on, then I'm sorry I wasted your time. My opponent is with you, so vote for her. She turns around, and as she's walking down, he says, well, wait, what else you got? Now, contrast, and by the end of this conversation, he had a lawn sign up for her on his lawn, right next to the Bush sign. Contrast that with the answer Kerry gave when asked about abortion during the debate. Blah, 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 blah. He's going around in circles. And by the time it was over with, people kind of, what was he talking about? And you know what that does? It sends a message that you are not secure in your convictions, that you're afraid of what people might think. You're afraid you might offend somebody. People used to say about Bobby Kennedy that you can measure his greatness by the number of enemies he had. But we as a party, thanks to the consultants and thanks to the media, are afraid to offend people. That's seen as a bad thing. Karl Rove, George Bush, they didn't know that's not a bad thing. John Kerry was the first presidential candidate in history to win the independent vote and lose the election. Because Bush and Rove knew that to win, you had to take leadership. And by being a leader, you would offend people. But when you offend, you also inspire and you also motivate. And people know where you stand on the issues, and they say, well, I disagree with him, but he's willing to fight for what he believes in. And you look at Democrats, and they don't look like they're willing to fight for what they believe in. So if they can't fight for their core convictions, what will they fight for? That's the message we're sending to America. So people say, well, we're going to make big gains in 2006, and I mean, Republicans are really trying to help us win this one, right? They want us to win desperately. They're like, here's our majority leader. He's corrupt. He's indicted. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. I don't think that's going to be enough. So I think, well, okay, we'll let Bush do whatever he wants, like he's a king. How about that? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to do that. And they're like, well, how about a couple of our congressmen in jail, like Duke Cunningham, right? Will that do it? It helps, but I don't know. And they're like, okay, we're going to keep screwing up Iraq, but even worse. And I was like, eh. So they're like, hookers? And on the high note, thank you very much.